Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one
Can do it better.
Wow, I got this one wrong. Totally wrong. Solomon Dacres went into this bout 9-0, 3 inside the distance, the English heavyweight champion. 6'5". He had the way longer reach. He's got the pedigree, Team GB, one of the top amateurs up in Sheffield with Robert McCracken. I just didn't think David Adeleye was about it really right now, because Solomon came off 2 good wins. Well, one was disputed. I thought he lost the first Michael Webster fight. He made amends and looked a lot better in the second fight. That was earlier this year. While Adeleye hadn't fought since he was stopped by Fabio Wardley in October of last year. But it looks like this Adam Booth partnership might have turned things around. Adeleye came out with his left hand pretty low, David Hay-esque low, trying to lure Solomon Dacres in. He probed to the body with that jab. Solomon, in hindsight, obviously needed to feel out the first round or two, but he was either going to try and get a right or a jab off, but he got caught cold by a left hand over the top, over Solomon's right, and it flushed him out. Solomon fell backwards and his head snapped back on the second from bottom rope, and the referee Darren Sarginson, he waved it off. Solomon was in no condition to continue. He did make it up before the 10 count. Great shot by Adeleye, great left hook. He looked menacing from the start, took the fight to Solomon. Like I said, Solomon got caught cold, had no chance of recovering. Career best win for David Adeleye. He's now the new English heavyweight champion. At 28, he could perhaps maybe do what Daniel Dubois did, come back from the hardships of defeat and show us what he's really about. Very impressive. Adam Booth said that Adeleye, he is an athlete, a phenomenal athlete that had really bad habits. It all starts from the floor. We've done so much work with legs. He said he's worked with some of the biggest punchers, and his jab and lead left is as hard as I've taken on the pads. Adeleye? Not surprising, after such a light workout, he'll be back in the gym next week, and he said he's got a big future ahead of him. Somebody posed the question to Frank Warren, would he make Adeleye versus Fraser Clark? And he said, yeah, if they want it. Over to you, Ben Shalom.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one
Can do it better.
Now hold up. This is one of the famous boxing beats and rhymes last minute edits. I could have swore blind that left hook connected with force. Somebody's put this video up and the left hook doesn't appear to land. If the video is still up, it's in the description box. Lawrence Okolie came in at 18 stone 8. At the weigh-in, he was holding his stomach in. He had his trunks hitched up pretty high. Definitely a lot of weight around the midriff. He didn't look terrible. He didn't look terrible aesthetically. But he don't look like he lost too much of his speed. We have to take into account that Hussein was absolutely what he was. If they are going to put him in with world-class opposition next, he's likely to get taken into a 4th or 5th round, and then we're going to see what it's all about, carrying all that weight. His opponent Hussein was woefully inept, like very upright, didn't bend from the waist or the knees, no upper body, head movement, none of that at all. Just came straight in. The audacious right hand he threw, where he got countered by Okolie's right hand, it didn't look like he saw the target. He was just trying to strike lucky. Was almost comical, but great right hand by Okolie, put his opponent on the floor. The referee rightfully didn't let it continue, and this was what it was supposed to be for Okolie, a give me from Queensbury in his heavyweight debut. Post-fight, he said, Fabio Wardley could be 1 fight away. I'll sneak up on a heavyweight title shot. It's funny, that name comes up again. I've held 2 polls. The first one was a few years back, and it was overwhelmingly in Lawrence Okolie's favour. The other one I took the other month was overwhelmingly Fabio Wardley. That's an interesting one. Very interesting one.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
no one
Can do it better.
Denzel Bentley became a 3-time British champion yesterday, winning a UD over Brad Pauls. Now, granted, I've only seen the highlights from BT. There's no full copy out there. I haven't found one. The rounds they showed, they didn't look like there was much in it. But Bentley picked the better punches. And this win, where he's now the British and European 160-pound champion, WBO international champion, puts him in line to fight JANIBEK, unified WBO and IBF champion. A lot of people are saying on the strength of that performance, he doesn't do any better than he did in the first fight with JANIBEK. That was in 2022. And I would argue, since then, Bentley has fought tougher opponents, and he's had 5 fights. JANIBEK has had 3 fights since their first meeting. JANIBEK recently fainted trying to make weight and had to cancel his title defense against the New Zealander, who he eventually fought this year and stopped him in 9. Bentley managed to take JANIBEK the distance the first time around, didn't look totally out of place. He was thoroughly beaten though. And maybe they're underestimating Brad Pauls a little. I think JANIBEK would beat Brad Pauls, but up until it finished, they'll give him a tough fight. Because I can tell you one thing for sure, JANIBEK don't throw as much punches as Brad Pauls. He's not going to put Denzel under the same amount of pressure. Why do you think Denzel was able to go the distance with him? It wasn't until Denzel realised that JANIBEK is flesh and blood and human like him. Okay, I could throw some shots as well. Has JANIBEK improved since their first fight? JANIBEK needs space to work. And if Denzel fights him again, he's going to have to take that space and that time he needs to produce his quality work. Denzel has to take that time and space away from him this time around. He has the hindsight of what he needs to do from the first fight, and he's more experienced. I think Denzel does do better if they're to have a rematch. I think he does do better. Now, whether he can beat JANIBEK or not, and I'll be rooting for Denzel Bentley to win. I wouldn't put no money on it, personally. But I wouldn't be shocked if he beat JANIBEK. I wouldn't be shocked at all. Frank Warren has to secure hometown advantage for Denzel. JANIBEK, not a big star in America. So, you know, come what may, purse bids or negotiations, let's see what Frank does. Ram out that Wembley arena. Put JANIBEK under as much pressure as possible, you know what I mean?
Boxing
Beats and rhymes.
No one
can do it better.
You need to tell them stop that, boy. Why is that? You know they try to rob that, boy.
It's a robbery.
When I read out the scorecards, I was thinking they were going to rob Richardson Hitchins. And then the first scorecard from Nelson Vasquez, 117-111. Liam PARO.
You had a little too much to smoke.
But all's well ends well, and Richardson Hitchins becomes the IBF 140-pound champion in what was effectively a sparring session. Behind his jab, the 1-2. PARO had no comeback. Richardson would land the right hand, slide to his right, and PARO had no idea how to cut off the exit. No idea, all through the fight. Wasn't able to make Richardson fight inside, lock his arms up and stop him getting off. He wasn't able to do that. The only time he'd done any roughhouse tactics was when they got in a clinch and he threw the rabbit punch, and he was admonished for that straight away. He was reduced to looking for one big punch. I'm sure the tactics couldn't have been to fence and jab with Richardson because that played right into his hands. First 4 rounds, it looked like PARO was starting to build up a rhythm, actually beating Hitchins to the jab. Then when he got his nose busted, I'm not sure if it's broken, around the 4th or 5th, Hitchins just cleaned up round after round after round after round. PARO did a lot of bouncing, a lot of feinting, but he just couldn't get to that second phase and rough up Hitchins. He just couldn't get there. You know, I could say he should have targeted the body more, but he just couldn't really get close. He should have fought more out of a crouch with his hands up. He couldn't have studied the last fight with Lemos on what Lemos did well, although Richardson would argue he had weight concerns for that fight. PARO suffered damage to the nose. His eyes were banged up pretty bad. He didn't get hurt like he's in trouble, but as he fatigued, some of them right hands were knocking him off balance. Perhaps the only criticism is that maybe Hitchins could have stepped on the gas a little more. Even when it got up close and they got into grappling and wrestling, Richardson held his own, pushed PARO back, got back to the center of the ring, got back in his jab straight right, and it followed a similar pattern for many rounds. Liam didn't give up on his jab. Hitchins picked it off on his forearms in his glove and outlanded him with that punch. That was the key punch to the fight, wasn't it? Liam's southpaw stance gave Hitchins some issues early, I guess, but failed to be any real factor like it was against Matthias. 2 different fights.
Man, you a popular guy tonight. You were just talking about it, right? You're from New York, you're from Brooklyn, Crown Heights. What does it mean to you to be another champion from Brooklyn, to represent in that way?
I feel like there's nothing to be like a world champion from New York. And not only that, to be a shit-talking champion from New York. To be somebody that talk their shit, come out and back it up and show out. You know, boxing is a stressful sport mentally. So for me to put a lot of pressure on myself, talk my shit, and come out here and have to perform, it's great to be able to put the city of New York in my back. It's always been a dream of me I'm going to throw this out here to have my own homecoming in New York.
Especially against Teofimo.
Teofimo, if we can't get him in the ring, whoever.
I think at first Eddie was looking at the upside of having Leon PARO becoming a draw in Australia. Unfortunately, they couldn't get a site fee deal done in time for December the 7th, so they ended up in Puerto Rico, and Liam got washed. And just to hear what Richardson said there, to be a shit-talking New York champion, a New York showdown with Teofimo Lopez, whew. It's also a great unification fight, one I don't think Teo is going to take for now. I'm not sure how long Richardson can stay at 140 either and be healthy, as good as his win was on Saturday. If I was Eddie Hearn and Jack Catterall especially, was taking a scouting report to see the aftermath after the dust settled between PARO and Hitchins, whether he was going to get a voluntary against the winner or take that eliminator against Arnold Barboza. Well, there's no question who the better boxer is, and I think his decision might be made. Go for Barboza, and that way he has the option to either go for Teo or Hitchins. And Teo is cornered, literally. He's literally cornered. Either go for the unification against Africa, which is Richardson's nickname, and you know what they say, unification supersedes mandatory, or take your mandatory with Jack Catterall.
Boxing
Beats and rhymes.
No one
can do it better.
Gracias. Necesitan llevarte al hospital. They're going to take ROBEISY Ramirez to the hospital immediately here. What he said was, look, at the end of the day, I couldn't see. Those were elbows that ended up hurting me, and I had to pull out of this fight. I'm happy with my decision. Now we're going to move on to Divino Espinosa.
Bite what I might get, then up and say I quit. Bite what I might get, then up and say I quit.
ROBEISY, Ramirez the Cuban, a nice boxer. Switches nicely from orthodox to lefty. Trained by Ismael Salas. Done some nice countering in the first 4 rounds. He said the elbows hurt him in the 5th, and he doesn't regret his decision. Well, it certainly wasn't the elbow that finished the fight in the 6th. It was that left jab, right cross, hit him in his right eye. It swelled up immediately. According to Mike Coppinger, a right orbital bone fracture. Ramirez was blinking and stopped fighting after he absorbed the right hand to the eye in round 6. He was examined at Banner University Medical. Doug Fisher, he said not to throw shade on ROBEISY, but I have a feeling that Doug's going to throw shade on him anyway. He said because he's a hell of a boxer, competitor, and his orbital bone could be broken. But very good to great fighters will fight on with one good eye. I'm thinking Basilio versus Robinson, the rematch. Kevin Kelly versus Derek Gainer. El Terrible versus Chino. That's Eric Morales versus Marcus Maidana. Yeah, Morales had a horrible swelling on that eye. Team ROBEISY told the referee pre-fight about the dirty tactics. I can understand why they did it. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Almost like he was lining up his excuse for the inevitable. And the facts are, if the referee misses it, he misses it.
Protect yourself at all times.
ROBEISY, halfway through the fight, he basically gave up. When on round scored, you'd have to say he was pretty much still in it. Pre-fight, he said, expect a war. In the rematch, after falling down, I always get back up. Well, we didn't get that war. Today, I'm not really in the mindset to challenge his integrity in quitting, and that's what he did. That broken eye socket doesn't sound like something that most men would fight on once sustaining an injury as such. Let's keep it real. It was the prototype quit though. No grey areas, no debate on this one. He turned around, waved his hand in defeat automatically as soon as that right hand hit. How Espinosa makes 126, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. But he's now 26-0, 22 inside the distance from Guadalajara, Mexico. I always had the feeling that his pressure was going to pay off against the technically better boxer.
Boxing
Beats and rhymes.
No one
can do it better.
Then the main event, we see the opposite side of the scale. Oscar Valdez showing extreme courage under hostile circumstances against the 130-pound WBO champ, Emmanuel Navarrete. This is a rematch. The first fight, Oscar lost on points. This time he was stopped in 6. I can see why he takes the rematch. He thinks his more conventional, more coaching book technique should overcome the likes of Navarrete. But Navarrete just breaks rules, isn't it? Like, Shushu Carrington was commentating, and in round 6 he said, so unorthodox. You know, he'll throw power punches, lead power punches from a straight leg stance. He'll overextend, do all the things they say you're not supposed to. And he's effective. Some people say he throws arm punches, but he whips them in, and they're very heavy shots. As it's 32 inside the distance, 39 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw record will attest to. Very effective. Valdez kept fighting back, landing flush shots, which Navarrete ate. Then in the 6th, that left hook to the body came back again. Valdez didn't see it. He was more focused on the right uppercut that hit him. And then the left hook to the body came, and he was out for the night.
Left, right, and he was out for the night.
Valdez has took some very tough fights. Very, very tough fights throughout his career. 2-weight champ, I believe. Crowd favorite. Yeah, like I say, Navarrete just does everything unconventional, but he's very loose and relaxed with it. Almost unstressed. And that's where the power is generated, because he's very relaxed. If he wants to throw a shot, he'll throw it. He doesn't care if it looks technically perfect or none of that. He's got his own way of doing it. I said Valdez was a 2-weight champion. I believe it's a 3-weight champion, so he must have started winning titles at super bantamweight. Navarrete, a 2-weight champion. He went up to 135 recently, taking on Denis Baranchyk for that IBF title. Good fight, but he doesn't look the same at 135 as he does at 130.
Boxing
Beats and rhymes.
No one
can do it better.